that we're 100 years old, as a formation of a family and a family name being established in Hong Kong. I took it upon myself, together with a few family members, to to try to create a link for the next 100 years, so to speak. A link that means in a context to engage the next generations, to create policies, to create identity, to continue with legacy, to have that move in a direction that it brings cohesion to the family. So in our business, in the corporate world, we are, I would say, property developers with main focus on hotels. We have our hotels are mainly concentrated here in Hong Kong. Let me rephrase that. In Asia, being Hong Kong being the headquarters, and then we've expanded to UK, US, as well as the major cities in Asia. But in the corporate side of the world is, you have your professionals, you have a 10-year plan that you try to focus and strategize and to build. But while doing that, we recognize that our family's grown significantly. We are 165 family members with the same family name, coming off the same family roots. And with this, for myself, I'm living second generation. The wealth was built on my father's generation. Having that continue has to involve taking care of the emotional aspects of the family, as well as ensuring that the boardroom and the governance of the boardroom can continue without any emotional attachment that could disrupt or disharmonize the unifying direction that we created. So with this focus in December, when we celebrated our 100th anniversary, we decided that to be our kickoff to try to build a bridge to the next generations. And when I say next generation, the next generation being the third, but it's actually their children. I want the fourth generation to be involved. And we want to try to give them the tools and the knowledge of what my father and his brothers had built for us. And rather than sitting on a realm of entitlement, I want them to be able to add their thoughts and their values so that the directions that the business takes also attends to some of their interest, or at least to be able to assist with some of the interest that they may have. Today, the property market, as we look at it, is, at least in Hong Kong, it's slumped a little bit. We look at China, it's slumped a little bit. And these are market forces that would cause or change in the way that, the product sits. And that's just a value. But how do we add value? It's a monetary value. So how do we add additional value to it? So one of our thesis has been to ensure that the family's values are carried forward in the product as well. And what are the family values? And that's a re-emphasis on the work that I've been trying to do, is to bring that up into play. So unity is one of them. How do you bring 165 family members together to think in a format that, or even in a philosophical understanding of what we represent and where we want to go? And that is, always a challenge where emotions are in place. And with this, we think it's important to try to create an alignment. And that's a huge job. It's a huge prospect of activity, which involves education as well. And in the education, we have to attend and listen to what the next generation wants. So we created a program called Building Bridges. And in this program, we're trying to look at what the first generation had created, and what was that philosophy as they created it, through a series of succession planning, through education, through care, how we can bridge that down to the fourth generation. So it's the technical side is the practical engagement, and then there is the philosophical engagement, the thought process. And how do we create that thinking, that critical thought process, so that the next generation has an involvement, has an attachment to drive us forward? So that was, in a nutshell, what's keeping me busy.
Yeah, I can see you got a very busy life because when I call you up for a meeting, for a coffee, for a lunch, you always say, "Oh, I only got 1 hour for you, 2 hours for you," and then rush for another meeting. And I can
Yeah. Uh,
see how complicated in running a family office is like a massive people like your family. And how can you imagine that 165, right? People
yeah.
living together. So, and you are talking about bridging the second generation to the next generation and then bringing the
Yeah.
family values to the third generation. So I represent a second to third generation as well. So would you like to
Yes.
share what is the like difficulties in communicate or articulating the traditional family values to the next generation? And what are the friction and resistance that you have encountered? And what are the solutions then?
Well, I think what's important is that difficulties or issues will always come up, and those issues are I guess a variable that you can't really pinpoint and theorize in a format that would be accepted by the next generation. So it has to be a dynamic process. And I think what has to be done first is to identify really what are our core set of our values. Because wealth is money, and in the context that the way of behavior in Hong Kong is that, hey, how do I go and perform so I can get a return every quarter or every day or every 6 months or every year? And that um, is a relationship of return on investments or use of capital. The area that is most difficult is how do you create a thought process for sustainability going forward? And we know that the family will grow. And what are the aspects of the family that their interests? So I'll give you an example. When I talked to my father before and I said, Dad, it's a blockchain. What do you think? And the answer is it's a scam. It's money laundering. It's always got some negative connotation. But the question is, it's technology. The answer is it's technology. And what does technology need to do? If we go further back and you say, hey, in the days that we used to communicate was write letters and we used a typewriter. Well, in my days, I used a typewriter. And with that, coming up into my college days, where you had to sit on a word processor and just type in letters through a DOS instruction base, and then it's come in with the advancement. So understanding technology as being the most important stage of industrial development, and that change, we have to be able to accept it and adopt it. And that's something I've always looked at in the last 30, 40 years, is to try to understand what technology represents today and where can I see it going to the future. So today, when I say I can type a letter on an Excel or Word or whatever platform that I can write my thoughts and my reports, how do I then understand the value of AI and how does that help me, or how does that confuse me, or how does it scare me? And if I go back to the days of my father saying that blockchain was something that is money laundering and a scam, today blockchain is actually one of the most important platforms for storage of information, right? And transaction well, the value of transactions. Banks are using it. They're not publicly talking about it, but the speed of transfers are being done through blockchain recording. And that's actually created a much greater efficiency in the way that the world works. And efficiency means speed. Speed means lower cost, economies of scale. So when I look at technology, I say, how do we take this and encompass the future of what the kids are actually working with and acting on, and to bring that in? I can't speak the language of Gen Z. So I had a conversation with one of my friends in the university, and because he is also Gen Z, and asked him, what should I do when I address Gen Z? He said, just talk normally, like I'm doing now. Just keep the conversation, because there's certain trends that will come, certain trends that will go, some of them will stay, right? So we have to identify what that is, but be able to have the communication channels open. And
Yeah.
that's where addressing the kids, and I think the key point saying building bridges is the concept of trying to understand the philosophy of the family and how we can communicate that downwards and upwards.
Yeah, it is so interesting that I also run the ROI in my mind when you spoke about it just now. And innovation technology is not always having an ROI for the family. And as you know that it is still very premature stage. So when I talk to my family office board member to run some of the new projects and tell them what are the blockchain and what are the new
Mm,
investment for new economy, whatever, they always
mm.
ask about what is the ROI, return on
Yeah.
investment. What is the like sustainability in the next 3 years? They are not even not asking about 3 years, just next three
Mm,
months. I
yeah.
do not
Yeah.
have an answer. Even I speak to a lot of people and ask a lot of technical people come to us, then nobody can even convince my board to even give a penny. So if strictly speaking to calculate the ROI. So have you also experienced that kind of conversation?
Sure.
Because running a family,
Sure.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think your point's really spot on. Um, uh, when we built the last hotel we built was 3.5 years ago that was completed. The first thing when we talk about ESG, right? We're a platinum leads rated building. So that means, some of the installation, the hardware, everything that's gone in is environmentally friendly. But how about the practices that of our staff, and how about the guest service experience? How do we ensure that any deployment of an environmental or social sustainability element is actually good for the planet, good for the hotel, and then what does it equate to in good for the return on investment to the company? So the return on investment carries a very large weight. It carries a very, very large weight. I've been in the ESG world since 2009, and really not so much in the concept of what ESG has become today, but I was in the business of importing water from Hawaii. And that water that was coming in was bottled in plastic containers, a PET container. And as I imported, I said, we have about 45 different brands that are competing with glass and plastic. What's your value proposition? So I said, okay, I'll go pick up the plastic from my clients, bring it in, and have that recycled. And then when I brought it back, I sent it to one of the charities that does the recycling, and I find out, okay, they separate the plastic and then they crush it, and then it's put onto bales and it sits on the pier. And we didn't have an agreement with China for the Close Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA. We didn't have the agreement for China to handle our waste. So all of this was just accumulated waste, bottled or shredded plastic sitting on the ports. Then I find out that they had to import or export it illegally after midnight on these fast speed boats, put those bales of plastic, import it. And I couldn't live with that. So I went to China and I bought the weight of plastic I was bringing in. I bought the pellets, converted into yarn, and I made aprons to sell to coffee houses. So that was my entry into a cradle to cradle type of understanding of the environmental impact I was creating, and then what it was causing for me to be able to buy it back and make secondary use of it. And that started my whole journey into understanding ESG. And then that went into a basis of consultancy where people came in and said, hey, look, I'll help you evaluate your carbon footprint and your energy consumption. And then the SFC mandates that your interim reports must contain 1 page of CSR, 1 page of ESG. And with this, I'm saying it looked like a lot of greenwashing. And that became a point of irritation, that the greenwashing in terms of marketing purview was much more important than the actual action. And then today we moved into the concept of impact investment. So when you look at impact investment, your returns on investment are not fast. They don't come out with the yield on a quarterly basis. it's going to take time. It's going to take you a year. It's going to take you 5 years before you start seeing those returns. So then you got to ask the investment side of it, how much patient capital are they ready to deploy? And that's the concept of conversations today, is how much of patient capital are you going to make available, which is risk capital, where you don't see the return and you can't measure the impact until you can actually see the effect in the population, or your profit comes in. Then you come to the intersection of profitability and doing good. What is doing good and what is a profitable thing? So should we set up a non-government organization as a charity and donate to that so it gives back to society? And then when you look at that, and I find out that of the donations, I would say the trickle down effect to the cause that they're trying to help with is only 10 to 30% of the money raised. And you look at the operational cost of it, because people need to get paid in order to deploy those services. That's eaten up by operational costs, and not everybody needs to be, giving up their life just for this purpose. So now we've gone to another tangent, which is philanthropy. And how can you actually invest into a program that provides a return to the community, as well as it creates a self-sustaining activity that the money keeps flowing through, so that the continuity of the funding can continue? And that's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, very interesting. You point out about those kind of mindset in strategically put your allocation and also tactically put your allocation into different bucket. For example,
right.
Very similar to my client survey in the past when I was in Huatai and UBS. We have done a bit of survey with the private banking customers and also the family office. We asked how many percent you will put aside apart from the normal investment portfolio for those who may not have immediate returns. And interestingly, the percentage is around like 15 to 20. And they said that they can put aside those money to 20% to those risky investments where they can set principal loss 100%. So this is quite in line of what you said. When I tell the numbers to the others, people are so shocking. Oh, I have 20% to bid. And it could be coins, it could be like sustainable investments, it can be ESG. And I'm just wondering, where does this 20% goes? So for example, for your family office, can you let us know the magic numbers, how many percentage you have set aside for those?
I'm going to give you a little bit more of an open secret in Hong Kong. Our CSR initiatives are very much not a financial CSR initiative. It's an action by the corporate that provides a function of doing good, being able to stand at a central rat race, for example, and giving your time to get that done. So, there's an award and there's a point that you raise money for certain charities. And when we talk about CSR, the differences between, let's say, Europe spending on CSR and Hong Kong CSR, it's roughly about a tenfold difference that Europe does more than Hong Kong does. And then when we talk about, in that context, that the margins that you're giving up for CSR is a donation that you give to the charity that gives you the qualification, whether it's a tax write-off or whether it's a tax deductible, and then the actions is outsourced to somebody else to perform. It's not really your performance, it's outsourced. And that's the nature of how we behave here, is we outsource it. I'll give it to one of the big charities in Hong Kong, Community Chest, for example. And that gives me a tax deductible, and then Community Chest would take the funds, and then they'll spread it out to the various NGOs. And then those NGOs would then carry a silo of operational costs before the trickle-down effect hits the community. Now that's the thing that troubles me the most. And then, I joined an organization. I was actually very honored to participate with the Center of Asian Philanthropy and Society, which was actually developed by a fellow called Ronnie Chan of Hang Lung Development, and he hired this lady, partnered with this lady called Dr. Ruth Shapiro, and the work that she's given selfishly in her time and attention to building an attention of philanthropy and trying to create the cohesion, not just of Hong Kong, but the rest of ASEAN to participate in what's needed in supporting communities in, whether it's impoverished or whether it's ethnic, whether it's education, whether it's medical, to trying to bring an understanding of intellectual understanding that actually allows the donations, the funds to be utilized more effectively, right? There's the efficiency and there's the effectiveness. So when we look at this, I try to learn from this and try to draw that back into our company and our family's philosophy. So the thing that our family represents in Hong Kong is not just a question of financial provision, but we've been part of the community in giving our lives, our actions. We have 4 foundations that were created that look after the ethnic minorities, that look after unsung heroes, people who do things without asking for anything in return, the true form of altruism, no hedonistic approach to it. Altruism, the gift of giving without asking for anything in return, and identifying those people. We deal with mental health issues such as anxiety and OCD. And if you see that I'm wearing a green pin today, it's a Mental Health Awareness Month. This is understanding that the stress and pressures on young people, including the corporate world, has actually grown, exacerbated, that we have to find a solution to be able to attend to those needs, right? It's the same 50 years ago, it's the same 30 years ago, but it seems to be more amplified today. Every generation has gone through stress. Every generation's gone through issues of financial stress, whether it's or personal stress. But now it seems to be exacerbated, amplified, that even in schools and even the school teachers, there are issues. The suicide rates have gone up. So we have a foundation that it tries to look into that matter and address the education elements, the soft touch of getting to the schools and to the communities to be able to assist and guide them. The other one is wellness, well-being. We have a yoga foundation that teaches communities to find a form of exercise where if you have certain disabilities, physiological disabilities, that yoga could be a step in helping you to recover some of those physiological ailments, as well as give you a form of practice that allows you to exercise without the strain or additional cost to your body, the stress restraints on your body. Now, that's foundations, but more than that, we look at how our family can be a participant in community. How do we go to the charity? How do we stand on the street and hand out food boxes? At every birthday, a family member on their birthday would buy groceries, uncooked groceries, and donate it to the assisted living homes, to the charities, to certain impoverished areas, and we would stand there and hand them out. And that's a tradition that my father and his brothers taught us. And that's something we need to hand over and allow our children to be able to participate and perform those actions. So the other side of it is the educational enlightenment. Well, I wouldn't say enlightenment as much as an educational sharing. So we host these talks in the family house. We do a quarterly talk where we invite a member of the community to come in and share their non-business, non-professional life, but their personal understanding and appreciation. And there are 2 facets to what we do here. Is one is to engage our family with the community in those events. Number 2, to share from our family what Hong Kong means to us. This is our home. It's our headquarters. It's where 165 of us were born and raised, and wherever else we've gone in this world, is that Hong Kong has given us so much. It's time for us to be able, it's not, we've always wanted, but we wanted to amplify that return back to the community by engaging what a fantastic city this is. And the issue that we've been facing is that, you know, we've been handed over to China, so we become a Chinese city. But nothing wrong with that. But while the geopolitical fright that comes in is causing a pull, a tug of war between um, expressing that our national security is actually detrimental to the people of Hong Kong, where it's actually one of the most important things that we've had to implement, as every country does in the world, to have their own national security law. How we implement it, how we discover the validity of certain contraventions is something that we're learning, or the Hong Kong will learn. And the more we have dialogue with the world, the more we can understand. And Hong Kong being a financial hub, it allows us, being Commonwealth law, we have the British law that has still continues to be the foundation of our legislative rules and regulations. So with this, we just need to we need the time to become more robust in the way that we understand. And Hong Kong being a financial hub, a major financial hub where US dollars and offshore renminbi is hubbed, it still acts as a conduit for international investments into Hong Kong and out of Hong Kong, through Hong Kong, to China, out to ASEAN. ASEAN's population reaching 700 million in the next few years. It's a very, very important base. And with the rule of law and the intellectual capability that exists, we think that Hong Kong, I believe firmly that Hong Kong will have strong foundation to invite international community to come in, explore Hong Kong, use Hong Kong as a base to explore the rest of Asia, which includes China, includes North Asia, includes ASEAN, and now bridging to West Asia, which is the Middle East. I think Hong Kong is a perfect place, a perfect geographic location. Infrastructure works, financial system works, the legal structure works. And that, I think, is for us to be able to share that with the community as we do these talks, so that they can also propagate this to the rest of Hong Kong and to their friends overseas and to anybody else who may say, hey, Hong Kong is a bad place to live. Actually, it's not. It's one of the safest cities in the world.
Yeah, I always know that you are very supporters for Hong Kong, because in every panels you speak about a lot of good things about Hong Kong, even during the hard times that we have encountered. So people would love to hear some beautiful use case or beautiful successful case on how to do business in Hong Kong or to the GBA and China. Could you share some of the practical use case that your group have implemented new business in China and in Hong Kong, and so that maybe how can other Hong Kong family office can leverage this on a very regional or global scale?
It's hard for me to really be able to answer that in a very short frame, but I think for us to be able to engage with other countries and have those dialogues politically and business is to share the cultural identities of all the markets and to appreciate it. So one of the things is that we also have our foundation, which provides a scholarship to some of the universities in Hong Kong. And that scholarship fund is to help people who have the ambition and the drive to pursue either it's a profession in medicine or profession in science, but to pursue that. And it's not based on just Hong Kong people. We look at the qualifications of any candidate, that a potential student who applies to universities, how they can reach for that qualification. And we don't say it's a Hong Kong-centric or Chinese-centric scholarship. It's Asian. It's anybody who wants to come in. But we only ask, and one of the things I've tried to talk to our science technology parks that we have two of them, is to invite Pan-Asian startups to come in through to Hong Kong, to be hosted in Hong Kong through our two great organizations, the STP and Cyberport, and for us to allow for the ecosystem of the intelligence, the money, the intellectual capability, as well as the society, to help give them, encourage them, so that whatever startup environment they pursue, they can take that and bring it back to their home country and expand that to wherever it may be, whether it's Indonesia or the Philippines or Malaysia, Singapore, wherever it may be. And I think that's part of it. It comes from the educational element. And that's trying to get them to understand that the world is not just where you come from. It's not where we are. It's everyone and everywhere. So going to China, I love going to Shenzhen. Irene's taken me to Guangzhou, and we visited one of the car companies, if I can say so, if I'm allowed to mention it.
Of course.
It was a company called XPeng. And going in to see how competitive the environment was. Let me give you a backstory. I started my manufacturing business in China in 1992. When I went to Shenzhen, going through the border from Hong Kong to the factory took me 2 hours on a single lane dirt road with ox drawn carts with farmers and everybody else. And 20 years later, less than that, 10 years later, there was a highway. And once that highway was built, where my factory was has become one of the largest golf courses in the world. 216 golf courses, 216 holes. Now, with that, the time from Hong Kong border to reach there is less than 20 minutes. It took me 2.5 hours, but in 10 years, it took 20 minutes to get there. And that's remarkable development. So we look at China in terms of what they are achieving in terms of their technological capability. We look at China in terms of their social understanding. There is a happiness there. I have to say that. There is a happiness. There are people who are out there who just love their country. And I'm very proud of these people to say that because of their love and their passion of their country, we want to participate. We want to look at that because their vision is to ensure that China becomes another great developed country. And the complacency or the entitlement hasn't hit them that fast yet. So how can we participate and work with them? So I look at tech investments. There's certain things I look at tech that we're starting to invest in a very small way, but we're testing their resilience and their ability to grow. And that's a form of measure. In the rest of Asia, it's still property driven, but I want to look at the soft side of it. What can we do as we build the property? How do we get involved in agriculture? How can we participate in agri-tech? How can we provide a funding utility using blockchain to provide pre-funding before they actually deliver the final product to us? So rather than putting them through the stress of borrowing from a bank or borrowing from a money lender to be able to acquire land, buy the equipment, buy their fertilizers and their seeds, let's look at funding that in advance so that when they do deliver, we can continue with that circle economy, that there is money that's provided, there's a return that's provided, there's a resource that is deliverable to the community. So that's just some of the examples, but it's very, very interesting that agriculture is one of the most painful investments to make because the returns are never there, and never is very hard. It's a very difficult word. If you want to build palm trees for palm oil, it's a 20-year cycle. You want to go out and grow durian, for example, which is a big project. It's a matter of time before China is able to pick it up and build for their community as well, grow for their community as well. So these are things that when we look at it, it's not a sustainable practice. It's opportunistic to fulfill a certain demand that has become a impact growth requirement. So how do we look at sustainability in that measure? And farming, to be able to farm on your own, to be able to build on your own resources is something that can be delivered. And this is actually very interesting. I looked at the model that Jollibee implemented in the Philippines, and what a great company, what a great philanthropic activity. They actually prepay farmers in the Philippines for their chicken before they actually take any chickens. They provide them with a financial resource so that it creates a bond with the community, it creates a trust, and it creates loyalty. So the farmer knows I've got money, I've got an opportunity to work, I've got an opportunity to earn money as I work. And as I work, can I deliver a product that goes back to pay off the debt that I have without the obligation of tying your asset as you would with a bank to take a loan against your property, but having the probability of growing something and delivering that. And when it misses one season, you work on the next season. And what they did was truly a remarkable philanthropic activity that empowers the villagers to drive for return. And I think this could be replicated throughout Asia. And it's something that, I like to look at.
Yeah, this is a very good use cases where it creates a very strong bonding in the marketplace where the community, the service provider, and the corporates having the energy and resources in a closed loop architecture. And I think apart from the philanthropy elements, they can actually create a financial marketplace where they can create loans and other different investment products so they can do collaterals based on that property.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
And it's not a land grab activity. It's not
Yeah.
an enrichment, empowerment, and conglomerate type of drive. It's actually empowering society. It's creating trust, well-being, health. You can attach to that as well. You build a hospital, you build a medical clinic. All the peripheral activities that support the community can actually be enhanced and enriched. And that allows for a lot of other players with their specialties to be able to come in.
Yeah, I also recall a few use case in China where the large financial group actually sponsored the farmers or some of the agricultural lands for the people to grow their crops. And
Yeah.
then they can circulate and the money back or to their houses or community or household. So these are like Ping An is doing a lot of these kind of agricultural projects in the rural China space.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what XPeng was doing as well in
Mm.
their philanthropic unit, was providing agricultural resource capability to the western side of China. And that was
Right.
very, very interesting. Right.
Yeah, I
So
can see a lot of
yeah,
like priorities in your radar, and you need a lot of family members to get involved on all these, picking up all these projects.
yeah.
And getting back to compliance governance, do you have like a formal family charter so people from the family will know the values that you are bringing in, the projects that you think is valuable? You need people to do the successions and continuity. So
Yeah,
how like document that and become a governance?
it's a work in progress, Irene. Honestly speaking, it's a work in progress. The key to getting this done is to bifurcate the two issues of what happens in the boardroom and what happens in the family room. So to create that separation is to build a family council and to have certain members of the family, representative members of the families, participate in that discussion, and to have participate in identifying where there's a cost to managing certain things. What are the opportunities for those costs? And one thing you said to me before, Irene, you said where there is a risk or where there is a problem, there is also an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's something you published on LinkedIn as well, I remember.
Mm.
And that just solidifies, qualifies the statements that I make with the family. That if you feel that it's an issue that costs you, there could be a opportunity that you could springboard and build on that. So coming back to the family is that we need to identify first is the family council and the practicality of the issues that we need to attend to and the philosophical elements that we need to be able to develop and build that can be passed on. For us, legacy, what do we stand for? Why do we exist? Who we are and why we're performing in the way that we're performing is very, very critical elements. And trying to get to fit those four criteria is a building block. And we're starting right now with the why. Why do we exist? Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to come together as a family? And that's the first step in the family council. The
So
practical measures are practical.
Yeah, but
Right?
interesting
We,
that you have a like 100-year old family business in Hong Kong, right? Why is this
yeah.
just the new starting a family council this year? Is it a
Long
story
story, short story. Long
long?
story or short story?
Yeah,
The
maybe
family's six
also,
pillars. There's six brothers. Six brothers. Each brother built their were participant in the group in the building of the hotels and the real estate, but each brother built other businesses under their own pillars. And with that, the expectation was number one that the eldest son would take over, and it wasn't based on meritocracy. It was just based on, birthright. Who was born first as a boy, as a male, would inherit that right. And it wasn't a question of capability. It was a question of saying the family name has to continue, and you have to carry the bloodlines of the family moving forward. But then all of a sudden, this thing about education came in. Oh my God, universities, you have to go study. And when you go study, you find out there's the academic side of it, but there's also the non-academic, which is relationships and the network and the development of that. So all of this stuff, all of these little elements became part of a, a little bit of a contention, a point of contention that they had to deal with, that these elders. The other element was that the elder brothers always thought that they would live forever. There's always that thinking, right? When you get older, don't worry, I'll take it. I'll take the helm. Don't worry, when I die, somebody will take it over. And the problem is that some got sick, some became ill, and cancer and other ailments that came in that affected their ability to be able to develop a succession planning on who and how it would be run and taken over. So the assumption is always the eldest son. So going forward is how do we change that thinking and that thesis to develop a succession plan, and what are the values that are required in that? And it could be a woman. We're very happy. Some of the women that we have in the family are just brilliant. They're super, super smart and diligent. So I'm very happy to be able to engage that and ensure that even though they get married and they have their children, we have to build the rules and regulations as they move forward. So the dilution of the family line in both the family name and the bloodline is not affecting what we need to continue with in terms of our legacy. Because that becomes reality, right?
yeah.
For
And
example, I have three daughters, right? They get married. They're going to adopt their husband's names. And then when they
bring
have
more family
children,
members here as well.
and yeah, and hopefully they'll have children. I hope they have children. I'm not ready to be a grandfather, but hopefully they'll have children. And what are the rights of their children to carry our family name or not? And these are things that we have to be able to manage. But there is also the concept: how do we keep them continue to be engaged with our family, to be part of the lineage? So we've got to figure that out. Not an easy task, but the fathers didn't do it. I've taken the role of doing it to make sure that our family runs it. We have a family council. I'm the convener of the family council. So I come up with the agenda and I come up with the topics that we should focus on. And hopefully there's an education process that helps to impart one part wisdom, knowledge of the previous generation. The other part is to elicit an emotional response that they can attend to and become value in what they want to build for
I think,
themselves.
yeah, this is the perfect time to mark your 100-year anniversary
Yeah,
and to take the really great steps to build that council. And you have
yeah,
accumulated a very long history of energy and intelligence and talents so that you can build it not from scratch now. It is just really a very successful use case to build your charter and the
yeah,
governance. And I
yeah.
think we have maybe less than 10 minutes left. I would like to hear like open up to the floor for questions now. And the audience might be very eager to hear more insights and story from your experience. So perhaps we can see who else in the room would like to raise any question.
I have this ability to make people fall asleep.
I can see.
It's like that. radio talk show called with Wolfman Jack, and he was always on at midnight, and then with that voice, and then people fall asleep on it. That's wonderful.
I can see only one person open up, switch on the camera. That is Claude. So I always ready welcome him to bring up some exciting, challenging question. Klaus, how are you?
Irene, how are you?
Very good.
Thanks, Mahesh, for this very interesting talk. You open up a window into family offices that are notoriously more privacy sensitive and
Yeah.
private in general. So thanks for sharing. That's great.
Oh,
I have
pleasure.
one question. That is obviously from my own experience. You've done some technology investments, I understand. What
Yeah.
are the challenges for a family office to do that? Because we've not seen a lot of that.
Klaus, give me a little bit background about yourself first. What,
All right, yeah,
so I
sure.
understand the framework of how I can answer and
Yeah,
and how
I'm
technical
I'm
or how.
I'm a startup founder actually. The company
Yeah.
is Know Your Customer. We're in compliance. We're actually a Hong Kong local company. I myself originally from Germany,
Yeah, he's one
live
of
Yeah.
the
half.
member of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong. Very
I'm
Okay.
I'm part of
All
the
right.
FinTech Association.
Excellent.
That's right. I spent a lot of time in Hong Kong where we founded our company and headquartered it.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've gotten investment not from family office at all. We have
Yes.
gotten some investment from kind of a VC type in Hong Kong, and later
Yes.
investment from a strategic investor from Europe. But
Yes.
I've spoken to several family offices and
Yeah.
never got a real interest, or it was
Mm.
always kind of blocked by
Mm.
politics, I understood. So that's my
Yeah.
my experience. I'm
Yeah.
not looking for investment in this case. We're currently profitable, and that
Wonderful.
is not a big concern. It will be a concern again, though, and an interest again, though. So, and also thinking about Hong Kong has indeed a rich startup environment,
Mm.
and Southeast Asia as well around it, and North Asia is certainly with its up and downs, yes, but
Yeah.
very interesting developments there. So
Yeah.
family offices in Hong Kong are in theory in a position to invest there and take part
So
in all
yeah.
of that, but I don't
Yeah.
see it, and so there must be challenges.
Yeah, certainly they are. They're
Yeah.
huge, and I think there are a couple of there are a couple of areas which I've in my experience in talking to people was that the trust element of how to deploy or who to deploy funds to, which means your ability to perform a deep dive into a company and believing in yourself. That's one trust. The belief in others is another part. So the modus operandi is the tried and tested formula. Go to VCs, entities that already have demonstrated success. And if it's in the tech side of it, you go to Silicon Valley and you go and talk to the Sequoia Capitals of this world and you say, what portfolio do you have that you've vetted, that you have $200 billion available to be able to invest in 200 different companies? And how would you look at this? And can I participate because you've done it? You have qualified trust, right? So this is the fast tracking of what was America's largest export, greatest export, not largest, but greatest export, was the VC philosophy that came out of Silicon Valley, was to come out to Asia and say, we can help create a robust system of allowing you to understand that our quarterly results will be the measure to which quantifies your success. And that VC culture in Hong Kong started to grow after that, but it was about deploying capital overseas. And then you talk to family offices, and I've talked to myriads and many of them. I asked them, what's your risk engagement? What's your risk capital deployment? And it's very funny that I talked to one lovely guy, but he says, look, we have a few billion USD that we invest, and we take risk every day. 2/3, we outsource it to investment company to manage for us. I said, great, fantastic. How do they and what do they invest in? He said, we buy public equity. I said, where's the risk? Oh, the prices could go down. Okay, that's that mentality. So I said, okay, forget that side of it. What do you invest in? Public equity is just the same. So where's the risk? Where's the deployment of risk capital? Then you can look at something that presents a return in the future rather than your desired or your mandated return of 8 to 12%. And they said, well, the stock prices could go down as well. And that's their risk adversity, right? So they have to trust an external broker or agency or asset management company that has performance that qualifies the mandate of 8 to 12%. That's the return. You've seen in Hong Kong how many properties have sat vacant for a long period of time. Then you fall into the issue of what do you call it, gatekeeper syndrome. The sustainability of my job is to perform that expectation return. And if I overperform, the pressure on me is greater. If I underperform the following year, my job is gone. Somebody else will replace me. So when you talk to the family offices and you come back and say, where do you want to put the money? It's to the people they trust. Then you go into syndication, pool of capital, syndication. What is the collective investment looking at and how do they move forward? So in this context, in the past, I'll say this was the past, that the elder generation who worked hard and earned their money and they want to keep that sustainable return to provide for the family is not the same thesis of thought or philosophy of thought as the second generation. And the next generation, where there's $2.7 trillion of wealth transfer in Asia in the next 6 years, is going to have a different thought of management or use of money or investment thesis. And these are the people you need to identify and talk to. They're the forward thinkers. They're the ones who want to do good for the world. They're the ones who have an idea of saying where technology is going to take us, what's the potential of that, and they're willing to put the money in. That's really in the nutshell of the historical to the current to where it's going. So you have a beautiful ride ahead of you for the next 6 years.
I've had a beautiful ride behind me already for the past 8 years that we have in our startup, and it is one of the most exciting journeys you can have, apart from running a large family office, I'm sure.
No, it's always great, and passion founders are very, very important. Who believe in the product, who've been able to hit those KPIs and those benchmarks that allow for more sustained improvement. Sadly, we just need the Hong Kong families and Hong Kong people. We have 2,700 family offices in Hong Kong, which the government's so proud to announce. How do we get that capital to work for Hong Kong? How do we get it to work for the people in Hong Kong? How does Hong Kong act as the intellectual capital base that allows this to flourish and grow? Because it's only 2007, we can get more, but what do we do by providing them with the human capital, the human intellectual capital to be able to sustain that and grow it? That's what I think is important.
I like that thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul and Mahesh. Anyone else in the room would like to raise questions to Mahesh?
There is from Sam. He's got a question. Can Hong Kong be over Singapore in family office and number and asset size in Asia for the next decade? Crystal ball or my personal view? Crystal ball is something I don't have any ability to read. I think Hong Kong has great prospects of opportunity. And I read the book on Lee Kuan Yew, which is very, very important. That he said when he was forming Singapore, and he said, Singapore has to find its place in Asia. And as he was developing, he says, if we go into manufacturing, we'll just become another Hong Kong. And this was a very famous quote of his. We need to find a way that we can leapfrog Singapore to the next area. Now, Singapore is a land of, I think, 300 square kilometers. Hong Kong is about close to 1,000 square kilometers. He looked at it and he said, how does Singapore provide a value? How do we create that conduit? And the few things he did, he brought in the major corporations, multinational corporations, to establish themselves and provide to these corporations the intellectual or corporate intellect that allows those companies to be able to build on the business intelligence side of it, with the concept of developing relationships as ASEAN to create that network and connectivity and flow of money in and out of Singapore. That was phenomenal. That was great. Hong Kong, meantime, went through its struggles of trying to find its identity, which is still going through at the moment. But I think I feel the energy is back. I feel tremendous energy in Hong Kong. One part, it's the money flow. The robustness of the money flow is one aspect. The other thing is that, okay, our legal system is great, but we need to find a signature of what Hong Kong needs to place the flag. And I met the Minister of Industry, Investment, Trade and Industry from Malaysia, and he gave us a speech about 2 weeks ago, and he says Hong Kong's got to find that core theme to what we're able to provide. We know the infrastructure works and it's robust, hands down, one of the best infrastructure in the world. But what is it that we're actually trying to share with the message to the world? There's so much negative noise that's attacking us from all angles. How do we forget about that noise and just focus on who we are and what we represent? What does the Hong Kong community represent? We have a very high IQ base. We're in par with Singapore, with Japan. We have 106 IQ rating, 106 score on the IQ scale. So we know that there's intellectual capability. We know that education must be fine-tuned. So you know that there is a lot of education tech that's being developed in Hong Kong that's going to help with the younger generations. But we still need to find that core thesis. What does Hong Kong want to do? And I think being part of GBA, being the conduit to the rest of Asia, 700 million population, to a 200 plus million population across in China, across our border, and trying to merge the intellectual capabilities both of all the various cultures as ASEAN, as a collective, could actually, Hong Kong could be the base to which we can do that. Now, what are the tools? What are the elements that we want to be able to develop? So the government talks about innovation hub, we talk about biomed, we talk about various different tangents, but we have to look at that leapfrog element. Singapore did it. It's our turn to find that leapfrog. And for us to find that leapfrog, to jump to the next level that allows, not to hurt Singapore, but allows Singapore to become, to grow as well. And we have to challenge each other for allow us to be the two hubs in Asia that can grow, that can develop and become very strong intellectual exchange for the rest of the world. That's what I believe. So competition is good, but we have to work. Yeah, the value to each other, I think, is very, very important.
So if we take anything from today's discussion, is this like Hong Kong has the potential to be the global business dragon? Like this year is the year of dragon. So a beacon of innovation, family leadership on the world stage, so to speak. So thank you so much, Mahesh. You have offered not just a glimpse into your family legacy, but also profound vision for global entrepreneurship. So thank you so much for being a part of today's live section. So special thank you to you, Mahesh. And
thank you very much, Irene.
So we'll be like capturing the highlights and sharing the snapshots soon on the LinkedIn. So stay tuned. And thanks again. We look forward to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining.
Have a great day.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Allowing me to talk because I don't get to talk at home. So thank you for that.
I will create more opportunity for you. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.